Thanks, Delana. All right, so just let you, I'm asking Delana to keep an eye on the chat as it's hard for me to see. So welcome, everybody. I'm Lisa Weil, the Executive Director of Great Education Colorado. You are used to seeing Ben, and next month you will see somebody else. I was hopeful that that process would be done by today, but next month you will be greeted by the new Public Affairs Coordinator for Grade Ed, which we're very excited about. And I think I'm just going to kind of dive in here. Um, all familiar stuff to you all, that our vision is that through public education, and as I'll talk about later on, that through public education is absolutely critical. Every student, regardless of zip code, learning needs, language, identities, color of their skin, every student can graduate ready to lead their best life. And what Great Ed's mission is, and what is one of the pillars is Advocates Network for this mission, is that we harness the power of grassroots activism and inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. And what we'll be talking about today is adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. Our goal, as always, is to create a space to build community, to learn together. Um, there will be a link to the July meeting in the chat now and later on. We have our community commitments, move up, move back. We want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, and so that everybody's voice is heard. We are bringing together a lot of expertise, diverse expertise, and so we're going to learn a lot from each other, and presuming positive intent, but acknowledging our impact. So we talked about the way we promoted this was talking about the road to 2026, and especially November 2026, when something really has to be on the ballot. And I'll talk about why, as if you are a group that needs to hear this. But this year was really tough. The budget was very tight. $1.2 billion had to be cut below just keeping up with inflation plus population growth in the state. And what they did to make those cuts was pretty substantial. And I'll say that there were a number of heroes in the House and Senate who really pushed to make sure that education did not take the bulk of those cuts. This is our second year without a budget stabilization factor, and there's actually a little bit of extra money to start spending for the new School Finance Act 1448. Originally, it was going to be $500 million over 5 years. Now that $500 million is going to be stretched out over 7 years. We'll talk about whether that's going to be possible, but there really was a lot of work to make sure that the formula didn't get changed too much. The counting of students was protected so that declining enrollment was not nearly as devastating as it could have been to a number of districts, many on this call. That said, a lot of grants were ended. And in order to not cut more deeply, they used a lot of one-time dollars for the whole budget. They found all the change in the cushions and used that. And so next year, those mechanisms for preventing cuts will have already been used. So this is the context for what we're getting ready for. The budget is going to be even tighter next year. The one big beautiful boondoggle, one big beautiful something. The reconciliation bill that the the U.S. House passed and is now in front of the Senate, which is going to have a lot of changes, but the current bill has cuts to Medicaid, to nutrition programs, to education, clean energy. All of those things are going to have a big impact on the Colorado budget, especially the Medicaid. And so we are hearing a lot about a special session or special sessions, I actually heard yesterday, that won't happen until the Senate takes action on that and the House and Senate come to an agreement and the president signs the bill. And so when that's going to happen, we don't know. But per usual, Colorado is in this state of flux, and all the states are dealing with the same thing of not knowing if the budget that they passed or in the midst of passing can stay, or if we may have to have rescissions because in order to stop people from being thrown off of Medicaid, money will have to be found somewhere else. It's just unknown right now. But the next question is, what does what revenue look like? Um, on a week from tomorrow, we will get the two forecasts that the legislature gets every 3 months from Legislative Council and the Office of State Planning and Budget.
Hello.
Those those forecasts showed shrinking surpluses, Tabor surpluses. There's a lot of reasons for that, but part of it is the expectations of income. And so the Tabor surplus is getting smaller. We will find out what they predict next week. One important thing is to note is that the last economic forecast was in March before so-called Liberation Day. And so the impact of tariffs on the economy is another really big question mark. And if Colorado goes into a recession, it may be that we don't even hit the surplus. And there could be a couple years before we hit a surplus again, because thanks to Referendum C, what we passed back in 2005, the Tabor limit will continue to increase from its highest point as opposed to dropping down. And so it just takes a little while after a recession to catch back up to that Tabor limit. I will say this, though. The Tabor surplus always comes back. Sometimes it takes a while, but it always comes back, sometimes with a vengeance, like the last 3 years when we gave back $8 billion in Tabor surplus. So I'm going to stop there. Are there questions, comments, thoughts, reflections? Everybody feeling optimistic?
No.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We always get there. Anything? Okay. So this there's less detail to this, but it is just as important and real as the context. What is percolating right now? There are some who are talking about a debrucing for education. Senator Bridges was considering bringing up, and I don't know the mechanics of it. And if it continues to move forward, we'll come back to you and let you know what it is. But there is some idea that some amount of revenue would be debruced in order to ensure that we can fund education. The impact of that is obviously depends on what the surpluses are going to be. Down the line, it could be hugely impactful. It could mean nothing for 2 or 3 years if there is no surplus to debruce. So CEA is looking into that, and I'll be meeting with them next week just to have a chat about where they're at, what it looks like. That could be put on the ballot by referred measure because it only requires 50% plus one in each chamber. Anything else like the graduated income tax is not going to come out of the legislature because it requires 2/3 vote, and it's unlikely that any Republican is going to cross over and vote for referring something to the ballot that changes Tabor in any way. There's a lot of talk about Tabor changes. There's a lot of conversation among there's the graduated income tax is being talked about by a number of organizations. We're one of them. And there's For those of you who have been following, there's been this coalition, Together We Thrive, which we were a part of, CEA, a number of labor unions, United for a New Economy, the Bell, CFI, has been getting ready for a while and talking about going on the ballot. It doesn't, it voted itself out of existence a few weeks ago. Just recognizing that there were a lot of different tide currents going on. CEA thinking about the debrucing. Some of the original polling wasn't high enough for some folks who might be funders. My feeling there is that the polling, uh, you got to know what you're asking, and more importantly than that, um, I don't know that a tax measure has ever pulled at 60, which is what a lot of the funders are looking for. So many of you will recall that we did Amendment 73 with $1.3 million from the first petitions printed to Election Day, and we got to 47%, which was 13% higher than anybody else had before. And so what I took away from that, and I think what the Great School Starving Communities Coalition took away from that, is that grassroots matters, local organizing, local messengers really matters a lot. And so uh, that's why there's a number of us saying, let's continue moving on, talking about the graduated income tax, because that would bring in some more money when we're looking at 2026. If we don't do something in 2026, the 2027, 28 budget is going to be horrifying. And that takes us to this candidate campaigns I put here. And that is, a lot of folks are saying, hey, where are especially the gubernatorial candidates on Tabor? Senator Bennett started off his candidacy saying that Tabor needs to be looked at. We have not had a governor leading on that for quite some time. And so one thing that all of y'all can do as you see candidate forums and events with those candidates, you can say, do you understand just how dire things are going to be? And that, unless we do something in 2026, that your first years are going to be overseeing the worst cuts that the state's already tattered safety net has seen in years. So, so that's a question that you should ask candidates, because we need people to start being able to say Tabor and to talk about the need to modernize our tax structure and make it more fair and support the institutions that we care so much about. So I'll stop there again. Thoughts, questions? Has anybody talked to candidates?
I have one question. How many states have a graduated income tax?
I used to know this when we were doing 73, most. Some have no income tax, but generally they do. Some of them, though, and Colorado had a graduated income tax till like the 70s, I think. And because there was no indexing, it was like it went, the first 1% is up to $2,000. And then another, 2% tax would be for up to $3,000. And like it maxed out at $15,000. So since it wasn't indexed, it really wasn't meaningfully a graduating income tax. I think that's true of a lot of states.
Hey, I'll just add that I've attended a couple events for Phil Weiser, and he gets asked that Tabor question at both of the events that I was listening at. And he comes out very strongly as he says, the governor needs to lead on this, and I will lead on this on Tabor. And so I think he is a guy who has been in Colorado, who works right here as opposed to at the federal level and, knows what's up here and has had to weather Tabor cuts like the rest of us, or the Tabor situation like the rest of us. So I was really very heartened to hear how strongly he wants to lead on, making changes to Tabor.
Good to hear. And I
Yeah.
do know one of the questions that comes up is, what about the right to vote? And
Oh, I'll just also say that he laid it out in three parts, and he said the right to vote is fine, the cap is not fine. So he's just a guy who gets the nuances
right,
of Tabor,
right.
and I think that we're in this state not going to have success saying to people, turn over your right to vote on taxes. But he says that's not even the most important thing to do about Tabor, and I'm in agreement about it. I mean, if we can say, "Yep, you can still vote on your taxes," but here are these things we really need to change. So I'm very hopeful.
Thanks, Tina.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any other intel or thoughts?
I think people need to keep saying that over and over and over and over again on the campaign, because it's one thing on the policy side. I also know a lot of the donors on for both these campaigns may not be in support of giving of major shifts to Tabor. And so I think that they really have to keep hearing it over and over and over again from people.
And a couple things here. One is that the graduated income tax does require a change to Tabor, because Tabor currently says that all income has to be taxed at the same rate. And that is exactly what a graduated income tax isn't. So, but that means, and this was, well, we actually didn't do this with Amendment 73. That's why we were able to get title for Fair Tax Colorado in 2020, which we didn't get on the ballot because of COVID. But we can just scratch out that one line of Tabor and increase taxes in one measure. And that means we have to gather signatures in every Senate district because it changes the Constitution, but we only have to win with 50% because it is only deleting something from the Constitution. That was the rule of raise the bar. The other thing is there are a number of organizations, CFI in the lead, saying that ultimately we have to get our tax structure out of the Constitution. And so there are conversations about how do we do what we need to do in 2026 to stem the bleeding and to make sure that Colorado students and our whole safety net can be protected from the cuts coming from the federal government and the restrictions that Tabor has put on us. But how can we do that in a way that that tells a story long term? Because as politically popular as the vote is, it's also the difficulty of putting something on the ballot is why the right to vote is also keeps the thumb on the scale for lowering taxes, not raising it. And the folks who can get on the ballot easily to cut taxes, the Michael Fields of the world, who has already filed something like 30 ballot measures on fiscal issues. They can get on the ballot. It is really hard for us to get on the ballot, partly because it's really hard to get everybody together. In a perfect world, you'd have a group of people. I've said this many times on this call. You'd have a group of people geographically diverse, accountable to their let's say constituents, and they would make decisions together. And if people didn't like what they did, they could be voted out of office if they thought that they raised taxes too much. That would be representative democracy, and we don't have it. So failing that, there's no center of gravity for who's going to decide what we put on the ballot. Should we be, how much should it be? What should it be for? And so what part of what this group of fiscal folks that are looking into this are doing is figuring out how do we create a center of gravity so that we can all talk, because Gary Community Ventures is looking at don't know what the mechanism, the funding is, but for childcare, and others are looking at hospitals and protecting rural hospitals especially. And others are looking at mental health. And so is there a way that we can all come together rather than have 7 different measures that cost so much to get on and so much to promote? And that is not a bug of Tabor. That is a feature. That's exactly what Doug Bruce was relying on. Anything else? Because what I really want to do today is, this is, we with Advocates Network, we've always said, listen, learn, and lead. And the listen part is us listening to our advocates. And we are moving into a new era where many of you have heard me say this too. We've been doing the Serenity Prayer here at Great Ed for many years. What do we have control over? What don't we have control over? We don't have control over what is going to be on the ballot unless I win the Powerball, in which case we do. But other than that, that's not going to be our decision. We'd like to be a part of it. We'd like to have as much grassroots muscle behind us to make sure that if we are going to do something, that it's big enough, that it's going to be meaningful, and that education is in good stead. And so we are really looking at building local teams, and you've seen these on our these badges. We're really looking to create action ambassadors who can help us build their local teams. And you guys are sort of automatically our action ambassadors, as you have been really learning and being part of this, gathering signatures, helping us think through the best way to move forward. So this is just a reminder, what we're doing here and building that is through the Get It Done campaign. The Get It Done campaign is a number of organizations, and if you are a part of one that hasn't signed on yet, please just write me an email and let me know. I know a number of you are. I'd see League of Women Voters and PTA. That's just who I see on my screen. I don't see everybody. We are urging the legislature to take bold and concrete action to implement the recommendations of the adequacy studies. And that first means let's figure out how we get from where we are to where we know those adequacy studies tell us we're supposed to be. And it's not going to all happen at once, and it's not going to happen in 3 years. But what if we aspired to making it happen over 10 years? What would that look like? How would we change the School Finance Act? So we're urging the legislature to take action about how we spend our money in an equitable way. And we also are going to be going to the voters to say, we've got to fund it, right? So this is who is currently on. This may be an old slide. So if your organization has signed on and it's not here, my apologies. But again, please, if you're interested, if you've got an organization that would like to endorse, just email me at lisa@greateducation.org. And this is sort of the recap of where we've been and a really ambitious last step. So in 2023, we got finally, after 20 years of advocacy, we got the state to commission the adequacy studies. We started this campaign of Get It Done, let's create a blueprint for student success. We started that in fall of 2024. The adequacy studies came out in January of this year. We did our advocacy at the legislature. We had the resolution that we did get past the Senate saying we are not going to put the adequacy study on a shelf. We're going to get that implemented. And so that took us through the session. And now we are here, this interim before the next session. And then, next year we just have to pass and fund the Colorado Blueprint for Student Success. So that's just one little bubble there. But I am very optimistic about it because of the work that we've been doing. Some of you have seen this already, and I'm going to talk through it, but this really is right now a draft. It is a first draft. It is not a done deal, but these are kind of the lanes of action that grade ed will be taking. Some of it on our own, some of it with a lot of different partners. So the main thing that we're doing generally on our own is public education voter. And so we just want to keep track that we're going to be telling people, we don't endorse school board candidates, but we sure can tell people that if they're public school voters, they had better get out and vote. And that here are some questions that you may want to ask candidates about whether students, all students, or which students should feel welcome in their schools. Ask questions about curriculum. So that's our public education voter, and we'll be talking about that later this year. The second is, in that serenity prayer, what do we have control over? And what we have control over is what kind of infrastructure can we bring to the table so that whatever gets put on the ballot, hopefully something, we are going to have the infrastructure to help it get on the ballot, to help it pass. And so what we're talking about is building local teams, and these yellow bars are things that our local teams can do. One of the really important things is for people to get to know each other, to have victories, and to just keep moving forward. So one thing is school board resolutions. We're going to ask our local teams to get their school boards to pass a resolution telling their legislators, we expect you to get something done. Are you going to help us get it done? So that is our advocates working with school board members, some of whom are also our advocates, so that we can get people to sign petitions to do this, so that we're just getting this conversation about the adequacy studies and what we want for our kids out there, and really easily connect people. There's going to be state and local actions all the time on federal policy where we get people to sign things. I will be showing you our action for federal, getting rid of the vouchers out of the reconciliation bill. And so, we'll keep doing things like that. You'll see that. We really want legislators to meet with their constituents. We want constituents to build these events where the legislator comes and hears about what is an adequacy study, what did the adequacy study say, and most importantly, having teachers and students and parents talking about what adequacy would mean in their school, in their district, so that the legislators walk away saying, oh, I understand that if there were instructional coaches in every school, that one teacher who said that they quit because they just felt like they'd been thrown in the deep end and had too much to do and weren't, that they had to leave the profession. I get it. That's what the resource means. Or I remember that one mom saying that if her student had been diagnosed earlier, that 3 years of hell could have been avoided. So we want them to walk away. And at the end of that, it's, are you going to help us get it done? What are you going to do to make sure that we don't just stick with our learned helplessness and say, we're going to fix this? We might do school tours. We might work with PTAs to do back to school activities. And all along, what we're hoping with these local teams, which the new person, our new public affairs coordinator, will be working online. We are still hopeful that we can get to Public School Strong. Many of you got involved in Public School Strong last year. Will be the platform we use. We may be using Empower. This new person is going to figure that out soon. I have reason to be hopeful that we'll be able to use Public School Strong, which is a really easy way to organize locally and still be able to talk to every advocate at the same time statewide. So, but we do want people to feel the power of building efforts that's not just for whatever gets put on the ballot or the adequacy studies, but will help with mill levy overrides and help with supporting good school boards and making life difficult for anti-equity school boards. So those are the kinds of things. That's not all of them. We won't do all of them, and this does not include all. This is a work in progress. So I'll stop there. Well, no, let me just finish. The last lane is the policy lane. And this is where we hope to have influence, because we've built an army that's going to be like, if this ballot measure happens and is is good enough for schools, then we will be able to deliver 50,000 signatures. So we hope that we're able to,
Lisa, there's
yeah.
a question in the chat about will there be sample resolutions for local boards to work from?
There is already a sample resolution. I think it's going to be, if you go to greateducation.org, there's a button near the top that says get it done. And then on that page, there is a link to our toolkit, and I believe it's there, but we can make sure that anybody who wants access to it, it should be there though. Katie.
Curious, so like, what is the specific ask? And I say this, and maybe this goes back to the beginning, because passing a resolution is great, and letting our school board member or our legislators know that we need another 40 billion for education is really important. But that's a 40% increase in our education budget, if my numbers are right, which means that the only way we get there is by doing something about Tabor. And so I think like the more we can just simplify, like that we have got to address Tabor in some way, shape, or form to get to that 40 billion. I think that that is really important to, like that, making that clear ask of like, we've got to do something about Tabor because we can't, the legislature doesn't have a lot of tools at their disposal right now. And I don't know that your average person fully understands that.
I am certain that they don't.
Yeah.
So it's a great point, Katie, and it's what we will be doing is trying to get these local teams to get more and more knowledgeable. The reason for these particular actions is that people need, it's really difficult to get people engaged to say, we're going to put something on the ballot. We don't know what it is. That's really not up to us, but we need to be ready. But to be able to say, look, why do we care about Tabor? Why do we care about taxes? Because we want our students to go to schools where no matter who they are met with the resources that will help them be successful. And we need more money to do that. But right now, what we're talking about is, can we get Colorado to just even say, we can do better? Or are we at a place where this is as good as it gets, folks? It's just going to get worse from here. So sorry, it's just a bummer. We got Tabor. So this is trying to say, okay, the first thing, it is sort of in using the organizing tactic of giving people victories and building that confidence and always adding to the knowledge base and the skill set. Advocacy days are that too. It's trying to meet everybody who cares about what we care about where they are, and give them something manageable to do. And there are a couple ways to look at this. In some ways, I think that if we can give some people, like, I know the world is nuts and everything is happening and they're flooding the zone. Here's one thing that you can do that is, it's measurable. It's like you're doing the same thing that people all around the state are doing. So we're together making this movement and we can do something. So fighting for this is the resistance. And this is also a couple years, months back, we did the terrible tease of tariffs, Trump and Tabor. And that's what's we need to be ready. I think in September, October, November, that's when when the national bill passes, there's gonna be like this urgency that's gonna make it a lot easier to get people to be engaged. Right now, what we're trying to do is build the teams and it may be in 2026, the only change to Tabor is that we're gonna get rid of that line about that all income has to be taxed at the same level. But we're doing it in a way that if we keep everybody involved, 2 years later, there's going to be something else. And if we get that blueprint, we don't have to fight with this. Okay, we passed amendment, whatever it is, we're done. Instead, it's going to be, we did amendment blank, and now we've got this much money, and that's how much closer we are to our North Star. But we already said we have a North Star, and we're still going to keep working on it. Tina.
Apologies for my tardiness. And I wonder if you could speak, Lisa, about the legislative resolution that came to our Colorado legislature there at the end of the session, and they all passed it happily. I mean, personally, I thought, well, it's really easy to say, yeah, we think this is important, and someday we'll take a look at it. And I don't know. Do you think it did some good? Are you positive and hopeful about it?
I am positive and hopeful about it. I wish we could have gotten it to the House, but what we did was we got the Senate on record, including 6 Republicans, saying funding public education is critical, that we need more money in education, and we are going to honor the $2 million that the taxpayers of Colorado put into that adequacy study. So yeah, I do feel good about that. Barb Kirkmeyer is probably going to run for governor.
Huh.
She voted for it. And so that gives us some, some leverage, and we can say it's a bipartisan issue now. And like I said, I wish it had gotten to the House. That was a great frustration, but so I want to get through because I actually want to listen, and I have been talking and talking and talking. So the green line is talking with people. We're going to have a volunteer interim committee. We wanted an actual interim committee, but we were told there's no money for that. So when we have these meetings with the legislator, it's going to be, will you be part of this conversation about how we're going to create the blueprint? Working with Representative Bacon on that. You'll hear from her later this summer. And then, working with all these different organizations, talking about what might go on the ballot. So we have these toolkits, and I was going to go through them, but I think it's more important. Well, I'll go through some of it quickly. Let me.
I think just to add one thing, I think it's important that when we're talking to our legislators, rather than them being able to say, well, we can't do anything, the point is we need a plan. We need to move toward it. Of course, we can't do it all at once. Maybe it's a 5-year plan, maybe it's a 15-year plan, but we have to have that plan. And also that they understand the adequacy study and that the need is real.
Thank you, Christy. That's really, really well said. And we have a video that if you go to that Get It Done page, it starts playing automatically. So don't open it when you're in a meeting, because I've done that. But it plays automatically. So that tells that story. We need a plan. We can't just be helpless. So this is something that we've given to some to some school board members, et cetera. But, this is one way that we're finding people. This is, did you see my email about school funding? Would love to have you be a part of this. So this is the, how do we get people involved? And this is partly what we're hoping is that some of you will say, I'll be that action ambassador, or here are 2 of us in Boulder who are in 4 different Senate and legislative districts. So we're gonna work on this. And this is the toolkit, the table of contents, and it just goes through legislative interim. We have to actually update it because we didn't get the legislative interim committee, but here's send the invitation, phone the legislator's office, email. What do you do if they don't respond? Do you follow up? Get the meeting scheduled, virtual, in person. Here's the invitation to other people once you've got it scheduled, and you say, dear friend, we want you to come to this thing where we're going to talk to our legislators about what our schools need and what the way our lives, the schools would change if we had equitable funding, adequate funding. We have some talking points. We have this presentation, which probably needs to be updated, but it's where are we now? Things are going to get worse. Let's get it done. This is the video. This is what the adequacy study said, and then we have details about each individual district. And then this is the most important part of having those conversations. So we've tried to make it as simple as possible to make this happen. So having really slammed through that, I want to ask this question. What's getting in, would you do this now? Would you take this on? And would you take it on at a different time, at a better time in your schedule? Or what is it that's the barrier? And I will say our new person, our new public affairs coordinator is going to watch this. And so you're talking directly to him or her, and in saying, uh, you know, what's stopping you on any level, personally, nationally. So I'll shut up and give you all, are you ready? Is this something you feel like you could do? And if not, why not? What can we do to make the entry point easier?
I feel equipped.
Jerry.
I feel equipped, but I'm concerned that CEA is not involved in this, and I don't know why I asked that question. Can you give me some feedback as to what's going on there? Because we're talking 38,000 educators.
I have Together We Thrive was one, we were talking about the ballot measures. I have reason for hope that there are going to be conversations. I had a really great conversation last week, and we're going to be talking with the Public School Strong people together, CEA and us, talking to Public School Strong. So if you can, push from from the retired, your colleagues and Lori and Bev, I think it's important for them to hear that this is really important, because really this isn't going to get done until teachers and parents and students are all working on this together. So I am hopeful.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, unfortunately, the retired doesn't necessarily have a big voice, but we can be very loud.
And incredibly effective. I mean, I've said this before. I believe that if and when, no, when we get better funding for schools, what's going to put us over the top of retired teachers? Passion, time, very nice handwriting. That's what, and well organized.
My wife just said not me, for the handwriting. But no, I mean, you're right, because, the teachers are in the classroom all day, but we're, unless you're subbing, we've got a little more flexibility to get out there. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Not working 3 jobs.
No.
Others, like, I really be honest, because this is what we got to figure out is how do we get people involved? And we need the ambassadors who can then say to your friends, hey, we're putting together this event, would love to have you come. Or I got this petition, can you just sign it and send it to your friends, asking our school board to take this action? Because then they've got their friend. This is relational organizing is what this is. So if you guys are reticent, then, then the folks who haven't been coming to Advocates Network and haven't been stepping in here, it's a bigger lift. So others, thoughts, how we can make it easier?
I don't know how to raise my hand. I'm
I
not.
see you. Go ahead.
But, I just want to say that I have a lot of passion for these ideas. This is my first meeting.
Thank
And
you. Welcome.
not a lot of new lingo for me. And I also don't completely fully understand the big picture in terms of legislative resolutions and school board. So I'm still understanding the big picture. And if I get on the website and look around and read, maybe that will change. But that's what's holding me back. I mean, I've got the passion for this. I'm a soon to be retired early intervention provider. So I educated the really, really young ones and tried to get it ready for preschool. And, really enjoyed talking to preschool teachers, principals, et cetera. And so I feel like I have that ability to connect with people, but I certainly don't have the background in the legislation and all those pieces. So that, just to give you an idea of somebody new, I would have a lot of work to do in order to, step in and do something this big, but I do have an interest in it.
That is really, really helpful. Is it Jean or Jeannie?
I go by Jeannie, but my real name is Jean. Yeah.
Okay, so I really appreciate that, and I wrote your name down. But what would be like, would it be helpful if we had periodic ask us anything kind of not webinars, but just this open Zoom room? And how would you want to get access to that information? If it's not necessarily easily on the web, well, there's a lot on the website. Is there somewhere way we could do outreach that would make you get you to a place where you could feel like, okay, I've asked my questions?
I think I'm not ready to, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm one of those people that wants to figure it out. So I want to get
Okay.
up, start reading, and then maybe I can, just tell me the right person to email with questions or suggestions or answers to your question, maybe.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
So who would be that person to email?
At this point, it's me, Lisa at greateducation.org. And next month when you come, if not before, you will have met our new coordinator of public affairs, who's we've got two awesome candidates, and it's going to be a great person. So we'll give you that name once we have it. But right now, you can feel free to write Lisa at greateducation.org.
Thank you.
Others. I got to look at the time. Okay, I'm good.
Barbara has her hand.
Okay, Barbara. Sorry, I can't see that.
Oh, so that's okay. It's probably blending into the white background. I was just a couple things, just thinking out loud. And a lot of other groups I've been involved with that have some initiatives going on or trying to get something started. Lots of times they have office hours where you can check in with somebody and actually talk to somebody. So that would be a suggestion. So we know we're not trying to chase you down or somebody else down.
Right.
And there's a place where we could check in. I think we have enough information and knowledge and tools. One thing I was going to say on a barrier is that there's just an awful lot going on just in education.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
you don't
not
know
to mention
which
everything else.
front to start with first, in addition to education. But say that you wanted to focus on it. I know there's a group we're working with that really want to promote the benefits of public education and at the same time push back on vouchers. So, I know these things all tie together, but how do we work together, coordinate together? If I start this group on this thing, how does that, I'm thinking time and energy, even as a leader and a coordinator. And out loud, where do we start? How do we get started? Is there different coalitions within our community that we need to touch base with and have a conversation with on how we're going to work together?
Right.
Those are some of the questions that are going through my mind.
That is very helpful, and hopefully what we can do is create a durable movement, and that's why this platform, where if we were able to do Public School Strong, where people can find each other, and where you can take that information and go out to your other, indivisible group. Here's an action that you need to take, so that it's all building together.
Yeah, or political parties or even nonpartisan organizations
Right.
that have an interest in it. And I did sit in on a couple of the Public School Strong presentations, and they've got tons of information and things going too. I did like the little map they had where you could click on and see who's working in a school district in your area on the same thing that you might not even be familiar with. But I just know personally, I've reached out on education, and there's, a couple people in Indivisible, a couple people in the league, a couple people here. And then I know there's been some coalitions that have worked on bond issues and MLOs that probably have some good, strong people involved. But how do you make connections with all those people? That's where I'm at.
That is very helpful, and that's why I really do hope that we get to have access to the public school strong map, because that really, you make your own events, you can invite people to the events. I mean, it really is about making that easy. Jen.
Hi, I just wanted to add that I think I have been really involved with the union, the JC. I'm involved with the JCEA, and we've been in negotiations with our Jeffco district. And so I went to the CEA convention earlier this year, and I think a lot of it is really hard to engage people right now. And I think that it's, at least for our Jefferson County CEA groups, it's kind of hard to shift gears after, and we have unresolved issues with our contracts that are expiring in August. So I think that's maybe part of the hang up in engaging those folks.
That is very fair and very helpful. Kathy.
This is just a thought that came to me, especially as Jeannie was talking. What about if you, in the toolkit, and you may have already done this and I just haven't seen it yet. Let's say I have invited a school board member or members out for coffee. How about 3 to 5 either questions for them or conversation starters for them, so they can use that and start that conversation and keep it going. But something like that as an aid might be helpful.
I love that. So, and if there are other people who think of like that kind of thing, so that the talking points or the starter questions for school board members, or the if there are other tools that would be helpful to get things started, please let us know. That one has been registered, Kathy. I really like that, as well as like office hours.
I would add too, think about different audiences that we might hit locally, that we might talk with locally. So it might be our senator, our state senator. It might, it might be different people or different teams within a school district. But you're going to have different audiences, so you're going to need a slightly different set of conversation starters.
Definitely true. And especially as we're trying to do this across the state, talking to a school board member in Yuma may be different than in Wilton. Yeah.
Right.
Jerry.
I pushed the wrong button. So while we're talking, I just got an email from Judy Amabile, who is our state senator from Boulder County. And she is having a town hall on the 21st of July about the federal cuts. And it just hit me that there's probably other state legislators that will be having town halls that we need to be going to and bringing up these issues.
That is a brilliant idea, actually. And we had some questions for, I think it's in the toolkit. That's one of the things, but we need to update it so that I think a lot of the, hey, are you like committed to making sure that we actually take control of our state and give our students what they need? But there's some that'll be dated. So a mental note for us to update those questions so that they're relevant. And maybe we can ask folks to just, when you hear about a town hall, just send it to info@great ed, And, ooh, cool. And we'll get that, we can start telling our people in that community, hey, there's a town hall. We'd love to have you go and, have one person ask the question and have a whole bunch of other people stand up with them. Christy, and then I'm gonna give you the last action before we go, because now I have to be my own timekeeper, and that's really weird.
The only thing I was gonna say, and it came out of whoever talked a minute ago, the reason it's so important to have local teams and to get opinion makers in all the places so that they can help put together those local coalitions, events, coffee, whatever. But the people who can talk to their school boards are the people in the community. And those are the people that we desperately need to find in every school district, that we tap into those folks.
That's right. That's right. And that toolkit of finding local leaders might be helpful for you if you think, I've got a friend in Durango. Let me look at that to get some sense of, how do I talk to them about it and get them excited about it and send them resources. Well, thank you all for all of that. I'm just going to quickly get to the one action for today. Some of you already probably have done this, but you may have done it when it was we were writing to I'm going to skip over all the bad things about, come on. All the bad things about the bill. This, so when you first took this, it would have gone to your House member. Now it's going to go to Senators Bennett and Hickenlooper, asking them not just to oppose this voucher plan that's in the reconciliation bill, but to take the lead in taking it out. What it does is it gives a 100% credit for every dollar given to an organization that gives out scholarships or gives money for vouchers. So to give money to schools that can choose whoever they want to take into their school or not, and discriminate however they want, it's 100%. It's not like when you give to a C3 and you get a 30% or whatever your tax bracket is. This is 100%. And if you give stock, then you also get to step up the value of all your capital gains. So basically, you give stock and it erases your capital gains for that stock, and the federal government will give you 100% of what you just donated. So it is a boondoggle. It is awful, and we need not just please vote no. That sucker is in the reconciliation bill, and the Senate needs to take it out. So I guess I'll just, let me see if there's anything else. You've already got that link in the chat, so I'm just going to leave that here for a minute and give folks an opportunity for last comments, questions, thoughts before we adjourn June and get ready for July.
Lisa, did you hear from Carolyn Bullock, I think her name is, from the Alliance of Retired Americans? Because I mentioned you to her. She said she knows you. And
I've known her for many, many years. Yeah, ping her again. I've spoken at the Arapahoe Dems that she has chaired. So
this is we actually meet this Thursday at the Pipe Fitters Union, but it's all retired union people. So
that would be awesome.
great resource.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's true for everybody else here. And some of you have taken me up on this, and League of Women Voters has had me come speak many a time. So if you have any organization that needs to hear this information and get jazzed about the fact that we're going to get some serious funding for schools and other priorities in the 2026 election, please. If you go to the Great Education website, there's a presentation request that is the easiest way to do that. All right, they put me in charge of ending this, which is just, nuts. So, any last words? And I'm the one who's gonna click the end. Thank you all so much for coming. Jeannie, thank you for coming for your first time. All of y'all, thank you for sticking with this and let's get it done.
Can I ask one quick question?
Of course.
I would love to be able to send that link to email legislators about the voucher problem to a Third Act Colorado and another.
I think that is, let me make sure. That link is in the chat. So if you just, Annalise put it in the chat. It's that really, really long one. So you can just copy that. You can use that in Facebook. You can send it in your own emails, but please, yeah, absolutely share that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. My family says that I say goodbye and never leave. And so here I am being responsible for making everybody say goodbye. Anything else? You all are wonderful. We will see you soon, and I'm looking forward to introducing you to our new coordinator. Take care.